Oh, you're back. I know, it's really hard to deny yourself a good discussion of urban planning theory. Last time, as you remember, we talked about the rational comprehensive theory of planning, which believes that the planner is an objective actor, that they make decisions that are completely informed and always in the public's best interest. Today, we're going to discuss the first major theory to emerge out of rational comprehensive, incremental theory. The theory was conceived by Charles Lindblom as early as 1953, but was mostly formed in his paper, The Science of Muddling Through. Lindblom called his theory the method of successive limited comparisons, but everyone else calls it incrementalism. Breaking from rational comprehensive, the theory is based on the belief that a planner cannot be a trained expert on multiple complex issues. The theory holds that a planner cannot know their own values except through comparisons to other values. In this framework, a planner cannot make rational, objective decisions, so instead, decisions should be reached through negotiation. Finally, incrementalism rejects the idea of having a long-range plan. Instead, all actions should be focused on fixing existing issues. Despite these differences, Lindblom saw incrementalism more as a branch of rational comprehensive theory, not an entirely separate theory. Incrementalism basically tosses out the superhuman promises of the rational comprehensive approach. It doesn't claim to study every possible option or outcome, nor does it claim to adhere to a set of values. Instead, it takes a handful of alternatives and examines how they're different from existing actions and also how they're different from each other. These alternatives are always palatable to the existing political atmosphere. It wouldn't be incremental to propose an alternative that requires a political battle to implement. The incrementalist has no goals or vision. They're only guided by the most convincing argument of the day. In researching this video, I saw pop planning sources like Planetizen attempt to redefine incrementalism as completing piecemeal actions when necessary. This might resemble incrementalism in practice, but in this series we're discussing the theory that leads to the practice. Incrementalism is a political strategy that's not interested in making big changes. It focuses on the margins. It works for the benefit of the free market and those who already have the most socioeconomic power. Where rational comprehensive planning is effective in transferring wealth from the working class to the capitalist class, incrementalism is effective in preserving and strengthening existing class structures. It does this mainly by limiting input exclusively to well-organized lobbyists. Unlike rational comprehensive theory, incrementalism does bring in groups of non-planners to the planning process. Lindblom called these groups watchdogs, and we would call them interest groups, institutions, and lobbyists. Lindblom believed in the free marketplace of ideas. He had little to say about the barriers to entry when developing the incremental method. Sure, anyone can form an interest group, but decision makers are going to respond to the most politically connected groups first. And beyond that, they're just going to handpick the groups that cause them the least amount of political friction. Lobbying is the only thing that resembles a public process under the incremental theory. Watchdogs are supposed to work directly with decision makers to push their preferred alternatives. Watchdogs don't have to share their values with other decision makers. They don't need to convince anyone of why their particular alternative is in the public's best interest. They just need to be successful in negotiation. In incrementalism, the wants and desires of the watchdogs participating in the decision-making process are substituted for the public good. I hope you can see the problem in letting corporations, nonprofits, and investors decide the future of where we live, all the while preventing actual changes to the system. The watchdogs and decision makers negotiate to achieve parteo optimum. This means that the selected alternative would benefit some watchdogs more than others, but harm none of them. After negotiations, decision makers select a single alternative based on whichever one has the most support and also achieves parteo optimum. Sounds democratic on its face, but remember, the only people participating are the most connected, wealthy, and powerful. Lindblom was a conservative. He created the theory as a conservative, as someone who believes that a free market with powerful corporations is the best way to organize the economy. Incrementalism is considered the most right-wing theory of American urban planning. Incremental theory is effective in reducing the role of planners and diminishing the voice of the public. It presents only small, politically feasible changes pushed by well-connected groups. Incrementalism doesn't try to solve problems. It makes surface-level alterations while preserving the root of the problem. Incrementalism 70 years later exists here and there. It's pretty common in transportation planning. And this is just conjecture. I think incrementalism is most prevalent in the suburbs where communities are not as organized. Ironically, the watchdog system works best when no one's watching. But two groups come to mind when talking about incrementalism: strong towns and the Congress for New Urbanism. Remember when I said incrementalism was right-wing? Well, strong towns and C&U are also right of center. I know. How can walkable neighborhoods be right-wing? Rightists hate walkability. Well, the form of our neighborhoods and of our cities is far less political than you might think. The politics are in how urban form is used to benefit or burden people. Strong Towns, which proudly identifies as incrementalist, was founded and is still run by a Republican engineer. I don't think he's a Trump Republican, but his beliefs in endless growth, the free market, and the role that corporate investors play into creating a thriving city are all right-wing. And what about C&U, led by famed architect Andreas Duany? Well, Duany also identifies as a conservative. He co-authored a document called Conservatives and the New Urbanism. Do we have some things in common? Let me read you a little snippet. In the study's second section, we consider two paths to new urbanism. One is based on government mandates and the other on a free market. The latter, which we hope to show, is not only conservatives' natural choice, but also far more effective in getting to where new urbanists want to go. I'm saying that again so you hear it. The conservatives' natural choice is far more effective in fulfilling the new urbanist vision. Hold that with you. Keep it close. That matters. Strong Towns and C&U are watchdogs. They're lobbyists. They come to cities and suburbs to negotiate with governments to slightly amend the zoning code. This opens up land for redevelopment. This allows investors to potentially turn a profit. This satisfies private equity more than any sort of housing shortage or third place shortage or whatever these two groups are claiming to do lately. Strong Towns and C&U aren't actually attempting to resolve urban issues at their source, they're just trying to turn more land over to the free market and reduce government oversight, which are foundational beliefs for conservatives and incrementalists. For the record, I don't object to the urban form that Strong Towns and C&U push. I object to the idea that form alone will solve socioeconomic issues. Strong Towns and C&U don't typically create comprehensive plans for governments. They focus more on small areas and neighborhoods. That's another incrementalist value that I object to. These developments are more often than not islands of walkability, disconnected and disjointed from other walkable areas. This will always be the result of planning incrementally. I do think neighborhoods should make their own plans, but there needs to be a centralized plan that connects everything together. Otherwise, we just get leapfrog development. This is where incrementalism fails the most. Incrementalism allows decision makers to select alternatives based on power relations with a strong preference towards the organized and influential. Incrementalism preserves existing institutions, dynamics, and the status quo. The theory is not concerned with agreement or sharing perspectives, it's concerned with who can strike the best deal and get the most political support with minimum pushback. An incrementalist framework would not include long-term goals or a comprehensive plan. It's only concerned with making marginal changes to address existing issues. Finally, the concept of the public good is reduced to the desires of whichever watchdogs are present for the decision-making process. Thanks so much for joining me. I hope you liked these. I wish I had found the spirit of scholarship while I was still in graduate school and actually needed to do well in theory class. But whatever. When it hits, it hits. Next time on Radical Planning 101, we'll discuss advocacy planning, the second major theory to break from rational comprehensive. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you then.